Every woman in a society, everybody, has to have 2.1 children. So that means if you decide to not have children, do you have a sister?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so your sister has to have 4.2. Let's say people don't want to have kids. Where are we in the United States going to get more people that we need to avert the coming global crisis? Clearly, people must have been coming in and doing things that other people didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. If they weren't, then we would have built the fence a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But we didn't. And so it makes you wonder, everybody's moving and shaking and making immigration as an issue that you're kind of opening the valve up and closing it. And
is it continuously going lower?
Yep.
It is.
Because of people like you, Savannah. Because of people like you.
Yeah, I feel like my generation, no one's really wanting. I mean, that could be wrong, but from what I've seen, a lot of people don't really want kids.
This is your personal decision, but you're not seeing how your personal decision is affecting an entire world.
Yeah.
Generally, what we hear in the middle, immigration, right? And it seems like, okay, here, these are the issues. So now you and I, we're going to go to the next slide. We're going to do birth rates today.
Okay.
So what do you know about birth rates right now in the world?
They're obviously increasing, and I know in some countries it's becoming a problem.
Because they're increasing?
Yeah.
Actually, they're decreasing.
Oh.
When I was your age, there were two major issues in the world. One was the expansion of nuclear weapons and the potential for nuclear war. And the second was overpopulation. Just fundamental issues, okay? And that's been the case for you growing up.
Wait, I was gonna say, isn't there a place where they're paying people to have kids?
Yeah, okay, right, exactly. Because it's decreasing,
right?
Okay, in so many areas of the world. So what's the problem with that? When the birth rate rapidly declines, what do you think the problem is?
Less people in the world, and that.
Okay, and why is that an issue?
The up and coming generation won't be able to take over what the current generation's doing.
Oh, yeah, okay. Do you have any? Exactly, that's it. Well,
okay.
Do you have examples of that?
I don't know, current jobs. If there isn't as many people to take over, being a doctor or a teacher, then it's gonna become less and less.
Healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Work and skilled. What about unskilled labor? Just skilled labor, or what about unskilled?
Oh, I guess unskilled labor too, yeah.
Uh-huh. So, think about, let's say I end up, or, your parents end up in assisted living somewhere. Mm-hmm. And they need help. Who's going to help them?
Well, I guess if the birth rate decreases, I guess not really a lot of people.
Well, they'll move in with you.
Right.
We won't have assisted living places because we don't have people to do the work that needs to happen. So they'll move in with you, which is fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? My wife and I we were part of, this aired in December, but this past year, we filmed a 3-part documentary on Korean television on the falling birth rate in Korea and the crisis, the coming global crisis. It's not just the birth rates are falling. It's that it's such an issue that countries around the world are saying, we're in a deep crisis. Every woman in a society, everybody, has to have 2.1 children. So that means if you decide to not have children, do you have a sister?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so your sister has to have 4.2. Got it? You don't want to have any kids, so she's got to have 4.2. You spread that around, right? Mm-hmm. Well, let's say you both don't want to have kids. Well, then somebody else has to have 6. Mm-hmm. And that's how a society reproduces itself. Birth rate's going to go down. How are you going to reproduce society?
You don't?
Well, no, there's a way.
Oh. Have other people have more kids?
Yeah, pay people to have kids. But let's say people don't want to have kids. Where are we in the United States going to get more people that we need to avert the coming global crisis?
I'm assuming immigrants.
Yeah. Everybody's going to be fighting for immigrants. This is the irony. The only place in the world where the birth rate is holding steady and actually slightly increasing is in sub-Saharan Africa. which is ironic. The modern world, the world of the 21st century, will return to Africa, but in a very different way. Asking Africans, inviting Africans to come into their nations, to say, listen, you got plenty of workers here. You need to come to our country, come to our nation, come, this is crazy. Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting to think about, okay? What we did was we spent weeks going all over Korea, talking with people about why they're not having kids. Because the Korean government and Korean businesses and Korean corporations are saying, we got to get our birth rate up. Man, this is because in Korea, the birth rate is 0.7. It's gone up a little bit, maybe to 0.8, because they're begging people to have kids. 0.7, man.
Yeah.
7's like, you're in shittville, right? It's a crisis. Okay, so now everyone's fighting over immigrants. So how is that to think that, oh wait, hang on, I never thought about this in immigration.
I mean, I've never had, like, the fact that people, like, personally, I've gone back and forth about, like, having kids, because, like, why would I want to bring a child up into, like, the world that it is now? And so, like, I feel like that's, like, an influence of people, of, like, why not?
Dude, what's wrong with the world now, by the way?
I don't know, just, like, global warming, and, like, I have, like, I don't know. It's just, like, a back and forth of just, like, wondering if I should or not.
Okay, because here you are in college, your life's just beginning, you're thinking like, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm here at Penn State, having a good time. Mom and Dad, I'm studying every single day. Never go out on the weekends, right? You don't party. And it's cool, life's just beginning. So that's a lot of people. The world's changing, and many people, women and men both, all over the world are going like, yeah, I'm not sure I want to have kids.
They're also really expensive.
Very expensive. That's an issue that Koreans talked about. It's very expensive in Korea. So, okay. So now, how many people does a country need in order to thrive? Like, how many people? Like, really? Like, how do you decide that?
I guess just, like, how many, like how many people you need to, like, have jobs in order to, like, sustain the nation, and, like, each different individual, like, parts of, like, a nation and how it works, and, like, what would get it to keep going and keep running.
Okay, so you find, like, a certain steady state.
Yeah.
And when you start to dip below that steady state, you go out and you get people. Do you ever think about that, like, here? Years ago, we could have closed the borders down. We easily could have. You wonder, like, why are the borders open in Mexico? With Mexico, like, why? You ever wonder, like, why didn't we just close them down, man? We could have built a fence, but why do you think we haven't built a fence?
Because we, like, I guess since the birth rate's going down, we need more people to come in and do.
Well, back in the day, it wasn't going down.
Right, okay.
But we still, what do you think we, like, wanted immigrants?
Like, probably.
Okay.
I guess, like, to do, like, specific, like, positions and jobs within the nation that, like, other people didn't want to do.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's true all over the world, right? So clearly people must have been coming in and doing things that other people didn't want to do. If they weren't, then we would have built the fence a long time ago. But we didn't. And so it makes you wonder, everybody's moving and shaking and making immigration as an issue that you're kind of opening the valve up and closing it. And so the number of people that we need in order to thrive is whatever it is. But the point is, you open and close the valve. If you were running the United States, you'd be thinking about this. How much would this issue come into play for you?
Like birth rate?
Yep.
I feel like it'd be like a big issue, because if there's not enough people to do certain jobs or, like, get the world to work or the nation to work, then that's an issue.
Would seem like it.
Right.
And educated, right? You don't want to go work picking oranges in Florida, right? I mean, that might be the only job you have available to you, but you don't want to do that.
No.
Okay. Do you know anyone that wants to do that?
Like, personally? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. I mean, like all my friends are in college, so they're getting a college education. So like putting forth all that money, they probably want a job that would give back that money.
So here, let me ask you this question. I'm not making an argument for this, but imagine that you were here without documentation. Yeah? And so you're like, okay, my main goal is to not get picked up by ICE or Migra or something, right? What job would you want?
A job that just like can get me whatever money I need to survive.
So as much as you can make. Would you be picky about what you do? How picky would you be about what you do?
Like not really picky.
Because
like I feel like with a high profile job, then that would be raising some red flags and you were just trying to like live and survive.
Or you just got to do anything.
Right.
So this is, of course, one of the issues, right? We talked about this last class about the problem with migrants can undercut the wages of legalized citizens, right? Because you come up and like I'm gonna do a job less than you're gonna do it, so I'm gonna be desirable in a certain sense, right?
Like, is it continuously going lower?
Yep.
It is.
Because of people like you, Savannah. Because of people like you.
Yeah, I feel like my generation, like no one's really wanting. I mean, that could be wrong, but like from what I've seen, like a lot of people don't really want kids.
Yeah, well, and some of them will change their mind when they hit their 30s,
Right.
their mid-30s.
Right.
Like you might change your mind.
Oh, for sure.
It'll kick in and you'll be like, oh, I got to have kids.
Yeah.
Now, we have solutions for this, right? And like Korea, for example, leads the world in robotics. There's no country in the world more roboticized than Korea. But I'm thinking about my mom, and I'm thinking about taking care of my mom, and I'm thinking about the things that I was doing, getting her on the toilet, off the toilet, cleaning her up, like the whole thing, right? I'm not sure a robot could do that.
Probably not.
Okay, so there's going to be a lot of jobs where it's like even robots are not going to be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
So we're going to need people. Is it? Yeah, it's strange that this is not talked about to the degree to which. Now we have AI also. So there's going to be a lot of jobs that, AI is going to take the job. And so that's good, right? That's a beneficial thing. So when birth rates are really, really low, we can, use AI to either power robots or power our minds. And like, that's cool. So when you hear about all the jobs that AI is going to take away, it's like, well, okay, that's all right. The birth rate's declining around the world. So there's a way in which there's a real benefit to that. Okay? So there's a balance here. But in the meantime, there's a crisis because we have to reorganize for it. But for you, one of the problems is for you, it's like this is your personal decision, but you're not seeing how your personal decision is affecting an entire world.
Yeah.
Because for you, it's just your decision, but it's actually affecting everybody in your nation anyway, in your community. That's the cool thing about sociology, right? Sociology teaches us how we're all connected in ways like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you choose to have kids?
I chose to not have kids.
And why is that?
But that's before the birth rate issue. I would have had kids. I contribute to my nation, you know what I mean?
What stopped you to, if it's not too personal to share?
It's not personal at all. Part of it's related to my dad dying, and then I didn't have someone around me he was 9. I was 9 when he died. And I didn't have anyone around to really direct me. And so from a very young age, I learned a certain freedom, you know what I mean? And then when I came up like your age and I started traveling around the world, I'm like, this is pretty cool. And I'm not really ready to have kids. Then when I met my wife, she has epilepsy. So, and her epilepsy was really active at the time when we maybe would have had kids. Her epilepsy was very active, and it just meant that we could have some health concerns with her, and we were like, But then it kind of stabilized. But the problem is we have a really, really close, intense relationship. Like we have a really intense, like, cool relationship. Like, we start the morning having coffee, talking. We end the day having a beer. Like, we work together. We engage together. It's so intense, and it's cool. And we just didn't want to have a child to, like, disrupt that. So that could seem selfish, and not everybody would want that. Most people won't want a relationship like we have, but it's really cool for us. So we were just like, yeah, no kids, man. Yeah, bro.
I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but what's a common argument against immigration in replacement of falling birth rates if the same people are usually against like welfare, such as paid maternity leave, which we don't have in this country?
Yeah, like the tax structure, you're building up the economy. You got to who's going to put money into Social Security, right? You're going to have to come to new ways to fund it, the whole 9 yards. Well, one way, I think a big way, is that people just aren't thinking about it. In Korea, they're thinking about it. Korea, they're looking at the entire economy. So we talk to government ministers and stuff, right? It's like they're looking at the entire economy going like, we're going to have to reorganize our entire system, our entire economic system to address this. And that's going to be very complicated.
Do you think it's a problem with like our government not being forward-looking and trying to like be in the moment to retain power?
Dude, man. Problem is these guys over here, they're like,
they can't work together.
They're going to be fighting with each other because their individual power is more important than making the best decision. And so all they care about is getting reelected. And so I'm like, dude, I don't give a who gets elected. Make a good decision on behalf of the people. So that's one of the problems that we have. Yeah.
So what makes, because Korea is a democracy as well, what makes Korean democracy and Korean politicians different than American politicians? And why can they address this and we can't?
Well, they're not addressing it. They're not, but in part they're not addressing it because it's a much bigger issue there than it is here. And they're having a difficult time addressing it. But Korea is a nation of 51 million people, and it's very monocultural. 95% of the people living in Korea have ancestors from Korea. So there's a way in which it's a lot easier to get along. We'll talk about this next Tuesday, actually. It's a much more of a communitarian society. So it's just a little bit easier for them. And in us, it's not. All this fighting and stuff actually gets in the way of this.
One of the arguments for immigration is that a lot of these immigrants will take jobs that Americans say won't want to do because they're bad jobs. They pay low. They're hard to work for. Do you think one solution would be improving those jobs so more Americans would want to work them,
or
like increasing wages, better work conditions?
Yep.
You think that would?
One is we increase the minimum wage. But these two knuckleheads over here can't even agree on that. What's our federal minimum wage? It's still $7.50, isn't it? $7.25?
Does more immigrants prevent that from happening because there's more people willing to do the bad jobs, preventing them from becoming better?
There you go. There's another one. So now you got immigrants. These guys could increase the minimum wage maybe if they had to. But, you got these guys coming over from Guatemala, from Honduras, from Mexico, from wherever, Chinese, going to South America and then coming up across the border. And these guys, and they're like, okay, we don't have to deal with this because, So, see, it's all connected, right? Yep, it's all connected.